So today we embark on the metaphoric journey.
Can you put that in another way?
We'll leave it at that for now. There'll be lots of other ways as the day goes on. So shall we finish the story? I don't know how many of you were attending to the story yesterday after that long day. Well, let's see if we can finish it up here. That's right, they said. What you are is a woman, possibly not human at all, certainly defective. Now be quiet while we go on telling the story of the ascent of man, the hero. Go on, I say, wandering off towards the wild oats with Oo in the sling and little carrying the basket. You just go on telling how the mammoth fell on Boob and how Cain fell on Abel and how the bomb fell on Nagasaki and how the burning jelly fell on the villagers and how the missiles will fall on the evil empire and all the other steps in the ascent of man. If it is a human thing to do to put something you want because it's useful, edible, or beautiful into a bag or a basket or a bit of rolled bark or leaf or a net woven of your own hair or what have you, and then take it home with you, home being another larger kind of pouch or bag, a container for people. And then later on, you take it out and eat it or share it or store it for the winter in a solider container and put it in the medicine bundle or the shrine or the museum, the holy place, the area that contains what is sacred. And then next day you probably do much the same again. If to do that is human, if that's what it takes, then I am a human being after all. Fully, freely, gladly, for the first time. Not, let it be said at once, an unaggressive or uncombative human being. I am an aging, angry woman laying mightily about me with my handbag, fighting hoodlums off. However, I don't, nor does anybody else, consider myself heroic for doing so. It's just one of those darn things you'd have to do in order to be able to go on gathering wild oats and telling stories. It is the story that makes the difference. It is the story that hid my humanity from me, the story the mammoth hunters told about bashing, thrusting, killing, about the hero, the wonderful poisonous story of botulism, the killer story. It sometimes seems that that story is approaching its end, lest there be no more telling of stories at all. Some of us out here in the wild oats amid the alien corn think we'd better start telling another one, which maybe people can go on with when the old one's finished. Maybe. The trouble is, we've all let ourselves become part of the killer story, and so we may get finished along with it. Hence it is with a certain feeling of urgency that I seek the nature, subject, words of the story, the untold story, the life story. It's unfamiliar, it doesn't come easily, thoughtlessly, to the lips as the killer story does. But still, untold was an exaggeration. People have been telling the story, the life story, for ages, in all sorts of words and ways. Myths of creation and transformation, trickster stories, folk tales, jokes, novels. The novel is a fundamentally unheroic kind of story. Of course, the hero has frequently taken it over, that being his imperial nature and uncontrollable impulse, to take everything over and run it while making stern decrees and laws to control his uncontrollable impulse to kill it. So the hero has decreed through his mouthpieces, the lawgivers, first, that the proper shape of the narrative is that of the arrow or spear, starting here and going straight there, and thok, hitting its mark, which drops dead. Second, that the central concern of narrative, including the novel, is conflict. And third, that the story isn't any good if he isn't in it. I differ with all of this. I would go so far as to say that the natural, proper, fitting shape of the novel might be that of a sack, a bag, a book holding words. Words hold things. They bear meanings. A novel is a medicine bundle, holding things in particular, powerful relation to one another and to us. One relationship among elements in the novel may well be that of conflict, but the reduction of narrative to conflict is absurd. I've read a How to Write manual that said a story should be seen as a battle, and went on about strategy, attacks, and victory. Conflict, carrier bag, belly, box, house, medicine bundle may be seen as necessary elements of a whole, which itself cannot be characterized either as conflict or as harmony, since its purpose is neither resolution nor stasis, but continuing process. Finally, it's clear that the hero does not look well in this bag. He needs a stage or pedestal or a pinnacle. You put him in a bag and he looks like a rabbit, like a potato. That is why I like novels. Instead of heroes, they have people in them. So when I came to write science fiction novels, I came lugging this great heavy sack of stuff, my carrier bag full of wimps and kletzes, and tiny grains of things smaller than a mustard seed, and intricately woven in nets, which when laboriously unknotted are seen to contain one blue pebble, an imperturbably functioning chronometer telling the time on another world, and a mouse's skull, full of beginnings without ends, of initiations, of losses, of transformations and translations, and far more tricks than conflicts, far fewer triumphs than snares, and delusions, full of spaceships that get stuck, missions that fail, and people who don't understand. I said it was hard to make a gripping tale of how we wrested the wild oats from their husks. I didn't say it was impossible. Whoever said writing a novel was easy? If science fiction is the mythology of modern technology, then its myth is tragic. Technology or modern science, using the words as they are usually used in an unexamined shorthand standing for the hard sciences, and high technology founded upon continuous economic growth, is a heroic undertaking. Herculean, Promethean, conceived in triumph, hence ultimately as tragedy. The fiction embodying this myth will be and has been triumphant. Man conquers Earth, space, aliens, death, the future. And tragic, apocalypse, holocaust, then or now. If, however, one avoids the linear, progressive, time's killing arrow mode of the techno-heroic, and redefines technology and science as primarily cultural carrier bag rather than weapon of domination, one pleasant side effect is that science fiction can be seen as a far less rigid, narrow field, not necessarily Promethean or apocalyptic at all, and in fact, less a mythological genre than a realistic one. It is a strange realism, but is a strange reality. Science fiction properly conceived, like all serious fiction, however funny, is a way of trying to describe what's in fact going on, what people actually do and feel, how people relate to everything else in this vast sack, this belly of the universe, this womb of things to be, and this tomb of things that were, this unending story. In it, as in all fiction, there is room enough to keep even man where he belongs, in his place in the scheme of things. There is time enough to gather plenty of wild oats, and sow them too, and sing to little and listen to Ool's joke, and watch newts, and still the story isn't over. Still there are seeds to be gathered, and room in the bag of stars. That's quite a metaphor, isn't it? The reason I read that to you is partly that it contains a lot of what we're going to be doing today. There's so many metaphors. I don't know if you noticed how many pictures were created in your mind and how many questions came and how many resistances you felt throughout the story. It's with certain words and certain ideas and certain concepts. And that's the world of metaphor. There are metaphors that intrigue us. There are metaphors that we resist. There are metaphors that we live, that we know. There are metaphors that are unfamiliar. And to me, reading a metaphor that's unfamiliar is totally exciting. I absolutely love reading something that I had never thought about before, that compares something that I had thought was the truth before. And now it says, maybe not. Maybe there's another way of looking at this, another angle, another way to perceive something. To me, that's what metaphor can do and hopefully will do for you today. Before we continue on the metaphor journey, is there... Yes?
It's a good idea to have a copy, I think so.
Have a copy?
For some of us, it went off of our
I'll tell you where it's from, and you can find a copy. It's from the book From Dancing at the Edge of the World. Shall I write it down for you? That's where it's from. It's just one example of many stories that are out there. And I think that when you have finished with this day, you will be hearing a lot more story in conversations and in the world than you had before. And you might want to explore stories such as this.
Adam, would you say Greek tales are sort of metaphors?
You mean mythology?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Odysseus and...
Sure.
And...
Sure.
Okay.
So now we'll get to the technical definition. So let's start with going to Webster, who says this is what a simile is. Two unlike things are compared in a phrase with like or as. We'll be playing with similes a little bit today. How like the winter has my absence been, so are you to my thoughts as food to life. Who possibly could have said something like that so elegantly? Who do you think? Shakespeare. Absolutely. A wonderful example of the use of metaphor.
Amal, can you tell us what play that was and what line?
It could be, I don't know.
Analogy. Similarity in some respects between things that are otherwise dissimilar. Often Feldenkrais. How many of you have heard of Feldenkrais? A few of you. It's a field that's about a type of bodywork. And it was developed by Moshe Feldenkrais, who actually Richard Bandler and John Grinder studied with. So it's often referred to as NLP for the body. So those are dissimilar, and yet there's a similarity about them. And business and sports might be another example of an analogy. Metaphor, a word or phrase that ordinarily designates one thing, is used to designate another, thus making an implicit comparison. A sea of troubles. All the world's a stage. Also, William Shakespeare. Sorry?
It was correct, William Shakespeare, the first one.
The first one was Shakespeare. You
I just...
You are correct. You are correct. Yeah. And now we'll move over here. Metaphor can be a communication strategy to make your point in a different way. And here are the sort of different examples of the way metaphor is used. So in the physical, in games, in rhythm, a dramatization or a skit, in dance, or a people sculpture made by people. As in an auditory way, a one-liner. Everyone know what a one-liner is? Yeah. An anecdote, an extended story, a quote, a poem, a song. In the visual ways, a cartoon, a video clip or movie, photographs, paintings can all be ways of expressing metaphor. An organizer, like a theme event. Let's see here. For example, a birthday party around a theme, like a cowboy birthday party or a clown birthday party or a costume party, a Halloween party, a Renaissance festival. All might be examples of theme events where it has a metaphoric theme. Concrete examples, a token or an iconic representation like